Today we're going to be talking about something that is especially important on days like today, on days when you are tired, on days when you maybe don't want to push through to do what you have to do, when you don't want to take the necessary steps you have to take in order to accomplish something. And we're going to be talking about goals. We're starting this brand new series. It's a 5-week series, so we're going to be in it for most of the rest of the summer. But goals are important. How many of you guys have ever set a goal before, as something you wanted to accomplish? And how many of you have you ever failed at accomplishing your goals? Because I think we all wrestle that. We all struggle with wanting to reach our own goals. When I was your guys' age, where are my 6th graders at? We got any 6th graders in the room? Yeah, when I was your guys' age, I had a goal to read through the entire Bible in a year. And started a whole plan and stuff, and I made it about halfway through Genesis, I think, and was like, I give up. You know what I mean? I made it not even to the end of January, and had already quit on it. Not because I intentionally decided I'm just not going to do this, but just because I forgot about it and I didn't do it. And so I know what it's like to not accomplish a goal, but I also know what it's like to accomplish a goal. Since then, I've accomplished tons of goals when it comes to sports or music or anything like that. When it comes to actually reading the Bible, I have actually read the whole Bible now. So I've accomplished that goal, and right now I'm trying to read it again. I'm going chronologically. So if you don't know, the Bible wasn't written from Genesis to Revelation in that order. And so chronological reading is where you read as the time of events happened. And that's not necessarily in the order that the books go in. So I'm reading it kind of out of order from how it shows in your Bible, but in order historically. So I'm trying to read it through that way to give me a kind of a different perspective on some of the stories in the Bible. But we've all tried to reach goals. We all have goals that we want to reach someday. How many of you guys, you have a goal of someday, graduating from high school, right? You want to be able to grab that diploma and say, I'm done. Peace out, right? And never look back, right? And some of you have goals how many of you want to go to college? Is that something you want to do? How about, doing what's your dream job? Turn to the person next to you, say what your dream job is someday. You got 10 seconds, go. All right, what's some of the things you guys said? Just shout it out. Teacher, professional baseball, football? Detective. All right. Say it again. I can't hear you. Oh, scientist. Nice. Chemistry was one of my favorite classes in high school. I loved it because we got to set stuff on fire. Anyway, it's probably the only reason I got a whole lot out of the class, because it was hands-on. Anyway, so all good stuff. We all have dream jobs that we want to accomplish. And here's the reality. In order to accomplish those goals, we have to set smaller goals, like baby steps, working our way up to it. And here's the reality. Here's the tension that you and I manage. If you're sitting here in the room and you are a follower of Jesus, then you manage the same tension as the rest of us. And that is that sometimes goals in our faith sound more like rules in our faith. You guys following with me? Sometimes goals in our faith just sound more like rules. And so it's not very fun. It's sometimes we even want to rebel against those just for the sake of, I want my own decisions. I want to have the freedom to make my own choices. And so we wrestle with that. But not following the rules sometimes lends us to some unwanted trouble. You know what I mean? And so I want us to try a little activity. I want you guys to all stand up. We're going to get your blood pumping this morning. And I'm going to give you a set of rules to follow, okay? You guys ready? Are you guys ready? Okay. You guys don't know what you're ready for, but you're going to be ready. It's going to be awesome. So here's what I want you to do. You got to listen to my instructions very carefully, okay? You have to hold your breath while hopping on one foot, okay? I'll give you 10 seconds. Go. Okay. I did not say spin around, so that was actually breaking the rules. But but good job. So, okay, next one, okay. This one's a little trickier. How many of you have a phone on you right now? Okay, I want you to balance that phone on your head and spin in circles. Okay? Don't drop it and crack your screen. I'm not responsible. Okay, yeah. Some of you are better at this than I anticipated you would be. Very good. Okay. Okay, next one. Okay. Tie your shoelaces with your eyes closed, okay? So everybody, you've lucked out. Everybody untie your shoes if you've got shoelaces. Untie your shoes, and when I say go, you've got to close your eyes and try to tie your shoe as fast as you can, okay? Come on with the double knots already. On your mark, get set, go. You got to tie them without looking. Keep your eyes closed.
I'm done.
How many of you guys can, like, it was easy to do with your eyes closed because it's just like muscle memory. You just know how to do it. How many of you is like, I don't know if I can do this without looking? Anybody? Awesome. We've got some talented people in here. All right, last one, okay? Look to your neighbor. And if you've got three here, you can all three look to each other, but find somebody and kind of look at them. Look deep into their eyes. And don't blink for 30 seconds. On your mark, get set, go. You got 15 more seconds, no blinking. No blowing in your opponent's eye either. All right, that's 30 seconds. How many of you were able to actually do it?
I've gone for 3 minutes with my dad.
Yeah? Is that what you guys do in class when you're bored? You just sit there and time yourself and see how long you cannot blink?
I do. I do.
The teacher asks you a question, you're just like,
21.
and you don't know what's going on because you're just trying to play competition with yourself. Anyway, I know what that's like. So, like, here's the thing. Rules can be really exhausting sometimes. Like, those are fun, but like when you have a lot of rules you're supposed to be following, like it's like I watch football with Chelsea sometimes, and whether it's going to like a Franklin game or it's just like the Super Bowl or something, and she's like, I don't understand the rules. Like, why did they go back and what's a third down? What happens when they get to the 5th down? It's like, don't worry, honey. And like, there's so many rules, right? And when rules become like exhausting, we just don't want to follow them anymore. We just want to give up on them altogether, right? You guys, you've been there, right? Where the rules are just so tedious and annoying. Like, I grew up in a private Christian school where there were lots of seemingly unnecessary rules, and I was done with it. It's hard to keep track of all of them, and I just gave up on following some of them because I was like, I don't even care. And then I would get in trouble, and then I would feel really bad, and then I'd start caring. But then I only cared because I didn't want to get in trouble, not because like I thought the rules were legitimate. So there's rules that can be exhausting, and for so many of us, they cause us to struggle in our faith because we feel like we can't live up to it. Whether you think that maybe faith just isn't for you because you're like, man, I can't follow all these rules. There's no way I could ever please God, so I'm just not going to do it. And so whether you feel like it's just not for you because of that struggle, or maybe you feel like this, and I can relate with this one, maybe your faith just isn't for you right now, right? Maybe that's for when I get older and it really matters, then I'll take my faith seriously. But right now, I just want to have fun, right? I've been there. I know what that's like. And it's not smart because then you do things that you regret. But sometimes that's our mindset. Sometimes we don't even like consciously make that decision. We just think in the back of our minds, I'll get to that later, and we never do. And sometimes, some of you, the struggle just means that you think maybe your faith just isn't right. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I can't live up to this because something is wrong with me. And there's nothing wrong with the rules, but it's not right for me because I'm not right. And so we struggle with this idea of rules and faith a lot. But when we look at faith and following God only through the lens of rules, we're actually missing the point. When we look at our faith just through the lens of what I should and should not do, then we miss the whole point of the reason for our faith. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Some of you may think that's weird or crazy because you thought Christianity was just like we do these things because we're Christians and that's the bottom line. But there really is more to it than that. Real faith is about freedom. And here's the reason we don't like rules so much, is because we think that they infringe upon our freedom. But real faith is actually about freedom, and we're going to dive in and discuss this a little more. One of the quiz questions from this morning's game was, which New Testament writer wrote most of the New Testament through letters? And the answer was, what was the answer? Good job. You sound so thrilled, So it was Paul. And so in one of Paul's letters, he's writing to the church in Galatia. And the whole theme of that book of Galatians is liberated. It's freedom. And so he's trying to tell the church in Galatia about this freedom that they're supposed to be having in their faith. About what Jesus has actually done for them that they're missing out on. And here's what he says, starting in chapter 5, verse 1. So Christ truly set us what? Christ truly set us free. Now, make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. And what he's saying is don't get so hung up on just following all the rules, or that's what the Pharisees and religious leaders did. They just were worried about all the rules, but they had no heart. He's like, just rules are good. We'll get to that, but don't get so caught up in the law and doing things the proper way that you miss out on the point of the law, that you miss the rules. See, Jesus actually came to set us free from the law. And he goes on a couple verses later. He says, if you are trying to make yourselves right with God by keeping the law, you have been cut off from Christ. You have fallen away from grace. Let me read that again because that's kind of shocking if we're not paying attention. If you are trying to make yourselves right with God by keeping the law, you have been cut off from Christ. In other words, if you think that you can earn your way into rightness with God, into righteousness, then you are wrong, because no law can save you. Only Jesus can, and only Jesus can set you free. Because when we make Christianity about just following all the rules, then we put all the saving power in our own hands. Do you guys follow me? When we make it about just doing all the right things, then what we're saying is actually I can save myself by just doing all the right things. And he's saying, no, that's not what it's about. It's not about the rules. The rules are good and it's a part of faith, but it's not what your faith is about. Christ actually came to set us free. Because of Jesus, we are right with God, not because of anything that we have done. And when Jesus came, the goal truly was freedom. Jesus came and the goal was freedom. Freedom from our sin, freedom from the mistakes that we've made, freedom to start over, freedom to have a relationship with our Creator, which seemed so unattainable. See, in order to recognize the freedom that God wants for us, we have to first recognize that we are not free on our own. See, many of us, especially in this generation, we forget that we actually do need a Savior. We actually do need forgiveness for the things that we've done wrong. There is a price to be paid for our mistakes, but Jesus paid it. And all we have to do is live our life in honor of Him rather than for us. And that means selfless living. That means giving our lives fully to Him. And that can be really difficult. But the point of our faith is not just following all the rules. It is freedom. Jesus came so that we could have freedom. In fact, Christ set us free to choose a path that leads to joy, peace, salvation, love, and life. Because when we are just living by the rules, then, and ultimately none of us can keep all the rules. That's why we keep making mistakes. That's why we keep hurting people around us. That's why we keep getting into trouble at times. And so when we just make our life about following the rules, then, or breaking them, we are actually a slave to them because we are letting them justify our actions rather than letting our actions be justified through Christ. So today I want you to start by doing these things. Ask yourself, what's holding me back from making freedom the goal of my faith? Because I think a lot of us, if we're honest, we make doing all the right things the goal of our faith. Checking off a list, making sure we stay clear on all the do's and don'ts. And while those things are good and they have their place, and I believe when we do follow the things that God has said, then one, it's evidence of our faith, but two, it allows us to live a life of more freedom. How many of you have been hurt by somebody else's mistakes before? How many of you have had to bear the consequences of somebody else's wrongdoing? Like, when somebody does something wrong, somebody always pays the price, and it's not always the person who does the wrong. But when we make our lives about following Jesus, and when we actually own up to the fact that there are things that are wrong, and we live our life the way that God has designed for us to, which means following some rules, then we actually live in more freedom. We actually kind of hold back and keep that hurt, keep the wrongdoings that cause hurt to other people and cause hurt to ourselves. When we actually follow the laws that Christ set for us, we actually save ourselves from a lot of heartache. Because God knows, when He created us, there's certain things that if you do them, it's just going to make life harder for you. It'll seem fun in the moment. It'll seem like it's not that big of a deal. But in the long term, you're actually hurting yourself. And sometimes we can't see that from our perspective. And so we just have to trust that God knew what He was talking about. So rules do have a place. But the goal is freedom. So what's holding me back from making freedom my goal in life? And secondly, remember that the freedom is offered through Jesus. That's nothing that we can do. It is only what Christ has already done for us. And it's by putting our faith in Him through our words, through our actions, through the way that we live our life, the way that we relate to our family, the way that we relate to our friends, the way we relate to the people who are not very nice to us. Those are the things that Christ came for. And that freedom can be found in Him. The goal is freedom. So as you guys get ready to go to your small groups, I want you to ask this question. What is one thing about faith that doesn't make me feel free? What's one thing about faith that does not make me feel free? I want you to think about that question. I'm going to pray for you guys and you'll be dismissed to your small groups.